Hey, to the 10 Huddle. I'm host JR, presented and brought to you by FanDuel. We appreciate you being here as we have another episode of Big Ten to get to here. Got some football, got some basketball, and then a little bit of football here at the end of the episode. Please do like, subscribe, do all that good stuff for us. Going to announce the winner of our home field giveaway on Tuesday night in the live stream there. So go ahead and join us on Tuesday night, tomorrow night, or tonight if you're listening to this on Tuesday on YouTube live stream 9 p.m. Eastern time. Going to announce that at the top of the show and let everybody know who won that. If you want to be involved in it for this month, go ahead. All you have to do, like, subscribe, comment, and just comment down below thought on the video, or you could literally just say I'm here for the home field, whatever it might be. We will pick another one this episode, but in this episode this episode though, we have a lot to get to. We have Illinois getting raided, their coaching staff, not really, but kind of talk about that whole situation going on there. Indiana had a great week of basketball. We're going to talk about their better chances and how they are rising up bracketology. And then Penn State had a recruiting loss on Monday. Kemon Spell committed to Georgia. We're going to talk about it all, so please do like, subscribe. If you're on podcast, give us a 5-star rating. Make sure you write something in there if you want to be included to possibly win the piece of home field. That is one thing from the home field website, $100 or less. All you have to do is comment down below, like, subscribe, or give me a 5-star rating review on the Apple Podcast, those type of places, and I'll be checking there as well. All right, let's get into all the stuff we have here. As the first thing we're going to get to, Illinois' coaching staff is kind of getting raided at this point. Now, not exactly, not really. We're going to get into why that is, but Illinois has lost a number of assistant coaches here the offseason so far. Most recently, Aaron Henry is going to be the co-defensive coordinator, not the play-calling defensive coordinator, but the co-defensive coordinator and DBs coach over at Notre Dame. Special teams coordinator / tight ends coach Robbie Discher is going to go to Ohio State to be just the special teams coach over there. And then Illinois early on in the offseason did lose running backs coach Thad Ward to go over to Kansas State. So these departures are interesting, right? Because Illinois just got done with back-to-back 9 win or at least 9 win seasons. They got to 9 wins with the Music City Bowl win over Tennessee, but people still felt like they did not kind of meet expectations a little bit this season, and that really is an indictment on Bret Bielema and where he has taken this program to say that 9 wins in back-to-back seasons, the first time in program history, is not meeting expectations. This was an Illinois team that started in the preseason in the top 10. They finished unranked. I think they should have been ranked personally. If you go watch my EP poll video, and they were only about 2 votes away of being ranked, or 2 points away from being ranked, I do believe. So this Illinois team had 2 good back-to-back seasons, but one issue they had, at least this season, and probably would have finished much higher and probably ranked if they did not have issues from the defense, which means that Illinois not necessarily let go Aaron Henry, the defensive coordinator, but definitely we're not going to have him back as the play-calling defensive coordinator next season. Terrence Jamison was the co-defensive coordinator for him, so we'll see how that works out, but he was previously the DB's coach in 2021, 2022. He developed NFL talents like Devon Witherspoon, Quan Martin, Sidney Brown, Kirby Joseph. I mean, did an excellent job as a DB coach. Notre Dame is going to be very happy with him as their DB coach. But the defense peaked under his predecessor, Ryan Walters, who had the number 1 scoring defense in 2022. After that, the next year, number 93 in 2023, 24.5 points per game. He did improve to 21.7 points per game in 2024, got 10 wins in the Citrus Bowl, but then they regressed this past year, giving up 28.6 points per game in Big Ten play. Notable losses to Wisconsin. That was not a pretty loss. And Washington, and obviously Bret Bielema does not like to lose to Wisconsin, and so that one was going to sting there as well. Giving up yards and different things, but he did have a good showing against Tennessee there at the end of the season in that bowl game, as the Tennessee was the number 1 offense in the SEC this season, and they held him pretty well. But was not enough for Brett Bielema to want to hang on to Aaron Henry as the defensive coordinator, play calling defensive coordinator of this team next season. So it sounds like this has kind of been in the works for a little while. It sounds like Brett Bielema may have gone to Aaron Henry and said, hey, look, you're probably going to get a demotion next season. If you'd like to go someplace else, do so. He obviously has a really good relationship with Aaron Henry. He doesn't want to see his career take a demotion. And so even though it is technically a demotion for him to go to co-defensive coordinator and DB's coach over at Notre Dame, it doesn't necessarily look that way. It could be construed as he's taking a bigger job and, still retaining his defensive coordinator, co-defensive coordinator role over there. But from everything we're hearing from many of those closely connected to the Illinois program, including my guys over at Talk Illini with me, it does sound like this was a move where Illinois said, look, Aaron, we love you. You did a good job, but we just need more. And so if you want to stay on as the DB's coach, we might be able to make that happen, but we're not going to be able to retain you as the defensive play calling coach. And so instead of taking that demotion, sounds like Aaron Henry went out. I think he interviewed with the Jacksonville Jaguars was one of the rumors out there. And then also Notre Dame, obviously, where he did take the job there. So we'll see what happens in the future with this defensive coordinator position here at Illinois. There's a lot of talk about Justin Wilcox could be a guy they might go after. They actually went after him as head coach at one point before they hired Brett Bielema. Mark Stoops is somebody that's out there. I think that's kind of a long shot a little bit myself. There's some fans talking about Ryan Walters might come back. He kind of burned his bridge a little bit. If you want to know more about that, go on over to the Talk Illini episode. Me and Carson kind of broke that down a little bit more. So Ryan Walters probably not going to be the guy. And then they do have some internal candidates who could possibly take over there as the defensive coordinator. But again, not a whole lot of experience. And I think if you're Brett Bielema, you don't want to replace a guy that you kind of gave a new opportunity to for another guy you're going to have to give the new opportunity to. Look, Terrence Jamison has done a great job with the defensive line. Corey Parker has done a good job with the secondary. Obviously, they had some injuries this season, and you can kind of nitpick that whole situation if you want to. But, I think that I think some of the main issues that we saw with this defense this season was just not being aggressive enough, kind of sitting back and being a little bit too passive. And so I do think that, trying to bring in a defensive coordinator who's a bit more aggressive, who has experience and has the confidence to do that is going to be key. Another guy they might go after, we'll see what happens, is Pete Kwiatkowski, the former defensive coordinator over there at Texas. He did a good job at Texas. It just was, unfortunately, Texas didn't even make the playoffs this year in a season where many people thought they might win the national championship. And so that was obviously a disappointment that they had to reconcile and go through with that situation. So it sounds like Pete Kwiatkowski was kind of the one that kind of took the heat off of that one. There were rumors that he might go to USC, rumors he might go to Stanford. Neither of those have materialized. So right now, Pete Kwiatkowski does not have a job, and so he might be looking for one, and might just so happen to be that Illinois is that one that he might just so happen to go to and look for. And Illinois is a good job. I mean, Illinois is a good defensive coordinator job. They've sent off multiple guys to be head coaches, the past few of them. Obviously not Aaron Henry, but the two before, Ryan Walters, and I'm blanking on the other guy who was before Ryan Walters. I apologize, but sent them off to be head coaches, and Brett Bielema is somebody who definitely can, kind of get you success at the defensive coordinator position, and you can go elsewhere and have success most likely. So we'll see what happens going forward with this. I expect this to be a rather quick hire. I'm sure Notre Dame's going to announce the hire of Aaron Henry at some point after that happens. I think Illinois probably has their guy at this point. I don't have that for sure, but I do think that they probably have their guy at this point. Sonny Verma was talking to me earlier about that. He's from Locked On Illini, and he kind of thinks the same thing based on some of the conversations that he's had. So we'll see if that comes to fruition or not. But it does seem like this was something that Brett Bielema was not caught off guard by, and may have been planning for this to happen. And with it happening now, looks like, with it being rumored to happen now, once this actually gets announced and he goes over to Notre Dame, sounds like there could be a pretty quick announcement after that. So we'll see what happens throughout the rest of this. Could just hit on the other two guys just here briefly. I don't think we need to mention them too much, but Robbie Discher, special teams coordinator, tight ends coach, Tight ends weren't anything spectacular this season. Cole Rusk and those guys were fine, but they did lose some tight ends in the transfer portal, so not a huge surprise. But Robbie Discher does have a long resume as a special teams coordinator, but he did struggle a little bit at Illinois. They had the blocked punt against Indiana this season, but he's had very high PFF grades. So, the fans were not always super happy with Robbie Discher, but sounds like when you ask people in the industry about Robbie Discher, sounds like a lot of people were happy with him as a special teams coordinator. But this will be an opportunity for Brett Bielema to go out there and find another special teams coordinator who could do a really good job. You don't have a whole lot of names to go off of with this kind of stuff. I mean, if I really, really wanted to dig deep and try to find a whole bunch of special teams coordinator names, I probably could, but we'll see what happens here. I expect Brett Bielema probably to make the defensive coordinator hire, then the special teams coordinator hire, or the running backs coach hire. Kind of might see what happens between those two, and that's where we'll kind of finish it out here. Thad Ward. He was on the Lovie Smith staff for a few years. Then he comes back. He's on the Brett Bielema staff. He did a good job. John Forster, Javari Barnett. He was able to flip him from I think it was Rutgers or Alabama, or maybe it was one of the two. Wheeler, Weish, they able to get them. He also signed Khalil Valentine, who should be a big piece of this offense next season. A lot of really good running back production coming from him. He was making about $500,000. So we'll see what they do, but he's gonna go on over and be the associate head coach and wide receiver coach over there at Kansas State. And so they do have an opportunity to make that happen. So we'll see what happens there. But overall, I don't think this is a situation where Illinois was like rated or anything like that. I think Thad Ward sounds like it was really the only loss that maybe they weren't expecting, or maybe caught them off guard a little bit. Robbie Discher, I wouldn't say that they were pushing him out, but maybe there was a little bit more pressure applied to him. And so it was on over to Ohio State, where they're going to try to work better with their special teams in the future. We'll work through that stuff. And then, like I said, with Aaron Henry, excuse me, that was terrible. I had to sneeze right in the middle of all that. But Aaron Henry, we'll see what happens with the defensive coordinator position. But we'll see what happens, because it is a situation where I do think Brett Bielema probably knew this was coming and probably has been on the search for a little while, and we'll probably get an announcement on this relatively quick. So that's what we got on the Illinois coaching staff situation. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Who do you think that Illinois should go after for their defensive coordinator? What do you think of Aaron Henry leaving? Do you think I'm right, or do you think that it was a huge loss for Illinois? Curious everybody's thoughts in the comment section below. We'll be right back after this. If I were to make a list of the winners and losers in college basketball this past week, Indiana would be at the top of the winners list for me because of their dramatic week that they had. This team boosted their NCAA chances, so much so on FanDuel, they are no longer even given odds on FanDuel to make the NCAA tournament because their odds are so high up there, and they have climbed so much after beating Purdue, getting a road win against UCLA, where albeit they were helped out a little bit by UCLA, but you also got Reed Bailey's best game of his career. His best game as a Hoosier. I don't know, might be the best game of his career. I didn't look at before this, but at least his best game as a Hoosier. You saw Nick Dorn continue to hit shots. He's done a great job. Lamar Wilkerson, Trent Sisley, he scores the game-winning bucket at the end of the game in that UCLA game. Overall, they were kind of in bubble trouble a little bit, but they are much, much safer in tournament position right now. And then this upcoming week, they have some interesting matchups we're going to talk about here at the end as well. So this team, 15-7 overall, 6-5 in the Big Ten at the midway point. They were able to beat Purdue at home, 72-67. They had 0 quad one wins going into this one. They knocked off the number 12 team in the country at home. The resilience, Darren DeVries really seems like he's getting his guys playing together well at the right time. UCLA 2 overtime win game. Talked about Reed Bailey, Trent Sisley, the game-winning bucket in that game. Bracketology is shifting right now for the Indiana Hoosiers, who are in much better position. Lenardi had them in his last four buys after the UCLA win. CBS Sports actually has them as a 9 seed going up against Villanova. Delphi has them as a 9 seed as well. Hoops HD has them as a 10 seed going up against Auburn. And then On3, a 9 seed going up against Texas Texas A&M. This is a great situation. These are teams that Indiana can beat. I'm not going to say they are for sure at this point. We'll see how the season ends out here, but these are teams that they definitely can beat. They have 2 quad 1 wins now, still 1-1 in the quad 2 games, but they climbed from number 32 to number 29, 7th in the Big Ten. They are well ahead of Ohio State, who sits at number 40 right now. KenPom, they are number 33 overall. I mean, you look at the metrics, they have risen in all of these metrics. They got some help from Ohio State losing to Wisconsin, San Diego State, Virginia Tech. Some of these teams losing really helped them. But the thing that helped them the most was Nick Dorn. I mean, Nick Dorn has been fantastic since coming in to the starting lineup. 44.3% from 3 on 106 attempts. This isn't like, oh, we shot 15 attempts or something. He has 106 attempts on the season, shooting over 40%, nearly 45% from 3, 15 attempts from 2, and he's shooting 77.3%, 11 of 15 on the season. There, and then he's shooting nearly 90% from the free throw line, 88.6%. He's had a recent surge, averaging 36 minutes per game, and they just done an excellent job with getting him the ball, and he's done an excellent job of moving without the ball to be able to get himself open as well. It feels like, and I said this at the beginning of the season, it felt like once this team started to get some chemistry, you would really see Indiana turn into a better basketball team that really could contend more for the NCAA tournament. They were kind of on the outside looking in, maybe a little bit there at one point during the season, and now they got the big confidence boost they needed, beating Purdue. That was a huge game. Like I said, Nick Dorn, Reed Bailey gives you a huge game against UCLA. It's the chemistry, it's the physicality down on the block and the paint as well. A guy like Reed Bailey also had a lot more physicality in that Purdue game. You thought that Purdue would be able to just kind of abuse the front court of Indiana a little bit with what you saw this season, but that's not what we saw in that game. Tucker DeVries, he's playing better. Reed Bailey, he was a huge impact guy, and I was also really impressed with the guys that had to come in at the end of that UCLA game and play some important minutes. Miles coming in that game, like I said, Trent Sisley, he hit the game-winning shot in that one, and the leadership of Lamar Wilkerson to be able to provide some offensive spark for this team. This team has a whole lot going for them right now, and now they just have to prove it. They have a 10 p.m. tip Eastern time on Peacock at USC. You best believe that's a game we'll be staying up for here on the Big Ten Huddle, checking out. I don't know. I might just go live after that game. I don't know. Check back. Well, no, it's because on Tuesday we'll have the live stream at 9 p.m. on YouTube, which will be announcing the home field winner there. But that game is going to be very interesting. Get off here on the Big Ten Huddle, and I'll definitely be watching that one on Tuesday night. Wisconsin, they have coming to them at home, and don't sleep now. Wisconsin currently 5th in the Big Ten. They are currently tied Big Ten record with Purdue after Purdue lost 3 straight. They looked much better after they got the win over Maryland, and Maryland looks like the worst team in the Big Ten right now. Just does not look competitive. Buzz Williams might get fired here at the end of the season. We'll see what happens, but this is a very broad, not a very broad. This is a very important week for Indiana to follow up their big week on. They got the big week of beating Purdue, beating UCLA, and now these are not necessarily top tier teams in the Big Ten. It's not like they're facing Michigan and Michigan State, but USC on the road, it's an important test. You kind of got the first test of UCLA on the road, and UCLA, obviously a very good team playing at home. USC been a little inconsistent this season. We'll see if they can put it together here against the Hoosiers. That's going to be a very important matchup for their NCAA tournament hopes and everything else. And then this Wisconsin team, they're kind of coming into their own a little bit more. Austin Rapp had the game that many fans were kind of hoping for him to be able to have there in that game, scoring wise and everything else. But this Indiana team is building momentum right now. It feels like there's a belief with this team. It feels like there's a belief. If they can just foul when they're up 3, okay? I'm sorry, Indiana fans. I don't mean to bring it up again, but if you can just foul when you're up 3, this could be a really good situation. But I do think that Darren DeVries, and maybe you agree, let me know in the comment section below. But I do think Darren DeVries was trying to get them to foul in that situation. It seemed like maybe they just, for whatever reason, didn't feel confident enough to actually do it, which it did come back to bite them. They went into the overtime because of it. What's his name? Trent Perry hit that 3 to be able to go into overtime. that was a huge clutch shot by him. They're not going to hit that very often, but in the off occasion they do. It really does suck. But this Indiana team, they have a lot of drive. They have a lot of resilience. They have a lot with them and what they can do. 9 games left before Selection Sunday for the Indiana Hoosiers. IU's week of transformation happened last week. We'll see if Dorn can continue to rise. We'll see if this team can pick up wins at USC and against Wisconsin. Let me know down in the comments. What's your predictions? Are you going to predict Indiana to get a win over Wisconsin, a win at USC? I'm very interested to see what happens with this Indiana team because I think they have a very, very good shot to be able to go to the NCAA tournament, make a little bit of noise. Now, as a 9 seed, even if you win, you're probably going to face a very good 1 seed. But if you can continue to win, get up there to like a 7 seed or something like that. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but if you continue to win, continue to play well here, you could see something like that happen. This team does still have winnable games left. I mean, you have Oregon at home, Minnesota, Northwestern. Obviously, these home games are all more favorable for them. I actually feel like Wisconsin is a very winnable game for them at home. Wisconsin, a good shooting team, but you do have Michigan State coming in at home again. And that this Michigan State team has looked more mortal after the overtime win over Rutgers and then losing to Michigan. This team looks more mortal. We'll see what happens. Hopefully there's no tripping or anything like that. Sorry, Michigan State fans. Sorry, just say we don't want anybody to get hurt, okay? But we'll see what happens. They are going to have to go to Ohio State on March 7th. Listen, you know me, I'm a Buckeye fan, but the Ohio State team does not have a home court advantage, okay? I think a lot of people look at an away game against Ohio State as much more difficult than it actually is, and I'm not saying it's an easy game or anything like that. Ohio State obviously has a very high-powered offense this season, but they just let Austin Rapp put up 19 points on them when they traveled to Wisconsin. And they don't have the most fan support there at Ohio State where they play at. So I'm not saying that, you're going to see a huge game from Nick Dorn or anybody like that, but it would not surprise me if this team going up against Ohio State later on in the season has a really big game. I think that might be the last game of the season. Yeah, that's the last game of the season there. So we'll see how that works out. But overall, this Indiana team set up pretty well. You go to Mackey Arena, Purdue. I'm sure they'll want some revenge, but you just showed that you can beat that team. So go beat them again. Really, the biggest games I'm concerned for this Indiana team is away against Illinois and home against Michigan State. Of course, away at Purdue as well. But like I said, you just beat Purdue. So hopefully if you play well like that in Mackey, we'll see something like that happen. 4 of their last 5. I mean, Indiana's won 4 of the last 5. That was kind of Mike Woodson's bread and butter there for a little bit. But it's continuing under Darren DeVries. So does Matt Painter have a Hoosiers problem? I don't know. We'll have to see what happens. So last segment coming up, Penn State recruiting. They lost out on Kemon Spell. Bring our guy Chris on to talk through the situation and what he thinks is going on. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Got some Penn State recruiting talk to get to here as Penn State unfortunately missed out on Kemon Spell. And as always, when we have some Penn State recruiting talk, we bring in our guy Chris to talk through what exactly is going on with Penn State recruiting. So we're going to talk through Kemon Spell, some different options here, and then also some other guys in recruiting that Chris wants to hit on. So Chris, I'm going to turn it straight over to you, man. What's going on in this Kemon Spell situation?
Oh, it's a bit of a roller coaster. This one really hurts. Wasn't expecting this one. And so basically what happened was about a month back, word got out from what I was told and what was being reported by some insiders. Kemon Spell was looking to reclassify to the year 2026. And I think because of like the way the state education laws are or whatever, being from Pennsylvania, I don't know if he would have been graduating early or graduating and then going to college. But basically what was supposed to happen, the plan was for him to reclassify to 2026 and go to Penn State. That was the plan. And I don't think he could, like I said, because of the state education laws, I don't think he was able to reclassify in his particular situation. I'm not saying other players like when Quinn Ewers from Texas went to Ohio State early, but I think Kemon Spell's situation, he was only able to reclassify in to a in-state school like Penn State, since he's from Pennsylvania. For whatever, they tried to push that through. For whatever reason, it did not go through. Now, even though it didn't go through when expected, a lot of us, including insiders, thought that maybe he has to take more credits or whatever the situation is in high school, but maybe just finish out in high school his junior year, then reclassify to 26 and start taking credits at Penn State and doing what he has to do, and probably come around the summertime. That did not happen, and today he unfortunately committed to Georgia. Now, Penn State wasn't expecting this. They knew he liked Georgia, but they weren't. And in fact, I think Spell himself said, I'm not expecting to commit down there. When I get down there right afterwards, he's going to play it out a little bit. But he has a new agency called Rock Nation. And once these agents get involved and certain people from his camp, I'm under the belief that people just got in his ear. And I'm not saying he doesn't like Georgia himself. Look, they're a great school. It is what it is. But I just think people got in his ear, were really pushing the SEC, pushing Georgia. And I just think he, from the, not pressure, but from enough people influencing him, I think he pulled the trigger. I don't think this is the end of it. It could be, but I do think if Penn State shows out on the field next year and they keep pushing, I think there is a chance they could flip him. But this whole thing came down to the reclassification. If he reclassified, he was Penn State's. If he didn't reclassify, it was going to be up in the air and lean Georgia. Now, the interesting thing why I continue to feel confident in Spell is like two of the main insiders, Steve Wiltfong and Brian Doan for On3 and 24/7. Spell even told Wiltfong that, he likes Penn State, but they're still not ahead of Georgia. Even with him telling insiders that Georgia's still ahead of Penn State, they still put crystal balls and picks in for Spell to go to Georgia. They still put picks in for him. So I still felt confident that down the road, maybe the reclassification, something was going to go through, and didn't happen, and here we are. And it sucks because the kid's a great talent. I think he's, like I said before, probably the best running back prospect Penn State would have had since Saquon Barkley. Now, my issue, okay, and I'm not saying this is horrible. I might be jumping the gun a little early here, but I kind of had a feeling about this, and I mentioned it during the transfer portal. I think Matt Campbell and his staff, coming from a smaller school, not having money, having to be cheap and go out and find under-the-radar guys, what their recruiting approach is like they had these junior days, and I mentioned this before. Junior days under Franklin, and I'm glad Franklin's gone, don't get me wrong, but junior days under Franklin, and I think all top colleges do this, they'll invite a large number of recruits. Every top recruit in the region, at least, and then other recruits that are interested outside the region, they would all come. Like, you want guys to come, your top targets especially, you want them all to come. You want them to visit. But the way Campbell does it is different. So instead of having 30 recruits there, he might only have 10 recruits, because the whole theory behind that is it's more formal, less people, you get to spend more one-on-one time. I think that could backfire, because this is what they're doing, and Spell's a perfect example of this, is, for the longest time under Franklin, and just for this 27 recruiting class, the number 2 running back in our recruiting region after Spell, the plan B guy, was Isaiah Rodgers, and you could pull him up. Isaiah Rodgers is a consensus 4-star running back. Penn State and Franklin, they're making it inroads. You can see his ranking. He's a consensus 4-star. He's a very good, solid running back. He's a top 10 running back. But here's what I mean. I just don't think Campbell has good plan B, plan C guys when the few top guys at each position don't pan out. Because instead of, and you see the guys ranking, and if you guys want to watch the film, you can watch film. His film checks out. But instead of going after an Isaiah Rodgers, instead they're trying to flip some little 3-star Nick Jarvis Warner from Cincinnati. And you could see Jarvis Warner here as he pulls it up. So, you're going from, and look, I know the star ratings aren't rocket scientists, but the higher up guys pan out more than, on average, the lower guys. There's a lot more lower guys. So, yeah, by numbers, if you have 300 3-stars compared to 54 stars, 300 3-stars might pan out. But the point I'm making is, why are they not going after Isaiah Rodgers like the last class did? Or, excuse me, the last staff. So that's my concern. And you don't have to pull this guy up. I didn't mention him, but they're also going after a guy named Kelvin Morrison. Kelvin Morrison, I think, is very under the radar. He's another running back from Hermitage, PA, which is out in western PA. It's right on the border of Ohio. And this guy could fly. He's a burner, but he's not even ranked by On3. Like, he doesn't even have a ranking. Now, he will have a ranking, be ranked by all of them. And I think he could be a borderline 4-star. And if you get a chance and watch his film, the guy he's explosive. He's 5'11", 185. He's going to have to add strength, add mass. But when he plants his foot and accelerates, he's as fast as any running back out there. He's just as fast as Spell. Not as good as Spell, but I would put his speed right up there. But my point is, like, why is this staff not going after good plan B guys? Okay. Give you another, for instance. Okay. Terrence Smith, a top in-state lineman. All right. Terrence Smith is listed as an interior lineman. I thought, I could be wrong on this. He's 6'6". He's built long. He's built more like an offensive tackle. I was under the impression, and I think he played offensive tackle in high school. I was under the impression, at least with Franklin, that he was going to be he was going to be recruited as an offensive tackle. They didn't go after him. Like, why would you not go after every single top guy in state? I'm not, like, these aren't slouches. Like, these are 4-star guys. Are they all going to pan out? No, it never happens. But they didn't even make a big push for this Terrence Smith. Terrence Smith just dropped his final list. I don't know if it was 8 teams or so. Didn't even include Penn State. He didn't include Penn State because they didn't push for him. Rutgers made a final list for a top in-state lineman, but Penn State did not. So I just don't understand. Now, if he's an interior guy, I could understand because we have a lot of good interior prospects. But if they're recruiting him to play tackle, like I believe the old staff was, why do you not push for this guy? Like, I just don't understand why you don't push for this guy. So the other thing I'm going to mention along these lines, okay, edge rusher, defensive end. This is the best defensive end class in our region. When I say our region, I'm talking PA, New England section, all through the DMV, through Maryland, Delaware, DC, Virginia. That's Penn State's main recruiting region where we've always done well. There are five top edge rushers, all very highly ranked. Couple of them borderline 5 stars. I think 1 or 2 of them are 5-star. You got James Pace from DeMatha Catholic. Okay, you have Mekhi Brown, who loved the old staff. You have Mekhi Brown from Massachusetts. You have Abraham Sessi from Downingtown, PA, who, similar to Mekhi Brown, big, long, fluid, pretty good get off. A lot of upside as a pass rusher. So you have Sessi, you have Pace, you have Brown, but then I think the 2 best guys they had, and I've seen these guys from a year ago, Anthony Sweeney, who's from Maryland, and Chris Whitehead from Virginia, if you want to bring up Whitehead. So, or you could bring up Sweeney first, then Whitehead. It doesn't matter which. Now, this, again, falls along the lines of what I was saying. you want to recruit, you want to land at least 2 top edge rushers. You're Penn State, you're a big-time program. You don't go after just 1 top edge rusher. It's a premium position, and then go get developmental guys. All right, is this first guy Sweeney? Is that Sweeney?
Yeah, that's Sweeney.
Okay, so here, Anthony Sweeney. They offered, but they hardly pushed for him. This is a kid right in their backyard. He's right in their backyard in Maryland. Hotbed of recruiting for Penn State. The kid's an absolute stud. I think he's a 5-star in one of the rankings. If not, he's close. And, I mean, tall, again, 6'4", 230-ish range. I mean, he's explosive off the ball. He's twitched up. And this is another recruit they didn't push hard for, and therefore he was kept off their list. So, again, he had a final list of I don't know how many schools, 8 schools, 10 schools. Penn State didn't make the cut. They didn't make the cut. Chris Whitehead in the same realm, if you want to pull up Whitehead. Virginia kid. Now, I know with the old staff, they really like this kid, and they're making a push for this kid. You see this kid's ranking. He's very similar to Sweeney, probably more aggressive. He's got 6'4" size, good length, and he's got a burst. He's got a twitch. He plays well with his, not great with his hands, but he plays well with his hands. Like, he has everything you need in a high school edge rusher to become elite, to get coached up and become elite. This new staff didn't even offer him yet. I don't understand why they didn't offer him. So who they did offer and are going after pretty hard is James Pace, Abraham Sessi, and Mekhi Brown. I know they're going after those guys. Now, if you want to land at least 2, even 3, but just give me 2 to the top edge rushers, is it better to go hard after 3 edge rushers? If you want to land 2 to the top, is it better to go after 3 of them or 5 of them? It's better to go after 5 of them. You're not going to be able to afford them all because you're not going to get them all. But why not go after all 5 of them and let the chips fall where they fall? So it's just a different recruiting pitch of how they're going about things. And we'll see how it all pans out. But I have a funny feeling that I do think Matt Campbell is going to be a better coach than James Franklin. That's not hard to do. I do think he will be a lot better in big games and give us a better chance at getting us over the hump. I'm not sure he's going to be a better recruiter. I know Penn State fans won't like me saying that, and I know they want everything positive, positive, positive. Well, listen, I just call a spade a spade. I'm realistic. I don't know, like James Franklin's recruiting classes at Penn State, if you go the first couple of classes when he was there, they're still overcoming the sanctions, and they're more so probably Bill O'Brien's class. But if you go 2016 right up to 2025, he averaged, if you took an average of all those recruiting classes, he probably averaged around about 13th, 13th ranked. I don't know if Campbell's going to do this. Like, for example, quarterback, I touched on Israel Abrams. Israel Abrams is the number 3 dual threat quarterback in the country. He loved Iowa State. Iowa State, when Campbell was there, was the leader, okay? And everybody thought, and he was going to go, he would have committed to Iowa State. Everybody thought when Campbell comes over, everybody's asking, why haven't they offered Abrams? Why haven't they offered Abrams? They still haven't offered him. So reason being, they have a couple other quarterbacks they like ahead of this Israel Abrams. They're going after Peter Bork and Will Menzel. Peter Bork, I think Peter Bork for Penn State is the best looking quarterback prospect that maybe they would ever get if they get him or recruit. I think Peter Bork is better than Drew Aller as a prospect because Drew looked good as a prospect. I think Peter Bork has more upside than Ethan Grunkenmeyer, and I love Grunkenmeyer. And I think this guy throws a beautiful deep ball. He's mobile. He's got immense arm talent. He's got great size. I think he showed out recently at an all-star game where he played great. So they're going out. They're trying to flip Peter Bork from Michigan. My understanding is we are in a very good spot. Penn State's in a good spot to try to flip Peter Bork, but then you read other things where he's really starting to build a good relationship and reaffirming his commitment with Kyle Whittingham in Michigan with their new staff, who he's already committed to. He committed to Michigan under what's his face, when the last coach was there. But yeah, so we'll see what happens there. The other quarterback they're going after is Will Menzel, and you spell his last name Mencl. Will Menzel. So Will Menzel is from Arizona. Will Menzel is similar. I don't think he's quite as good as Peter Bork, but he is similar in a big drop back passer. He's got to be like 6'4", the 215, 220 range. Big, strong arm kid, a lot of arm talent, pretty mobile, not what you call a dual threat, but he could run. He decent mobility. So what happens, because it's somewhat of a long shot that they're going to flip Bork. Then you have this Will Menzel on the other side of the country in Arizona. Now, I did not know this, and I don't know what the connection is, but Taylor Mauser, our offensive coordinator, has strong connections to Arizona, okay, which is going to help a lot. This Will Menzel has offers from Oregon. I think he has offers from Auburn. He has some nice offers. Are we going to out-recruit and outspend Oregon for this kid? Oregon's on the West Coast, just like Arizona, even though they're nowhere near each other. Is this kid going to come all the way over to the other side of the corner of the country? I hope he does, but, probably take less NIL than what Oregon would offer. Is he going to do that? So if you're not offering Israel Abrams because you like these other two guys, what happens if you don't hit on either two of these quarterbacks? Now you're left holding the bag. What do they do? So I just think I know Matt Campbell is a grinder. I know he's a football guy. The word on him is you don't even see him. You don't see him on camera. You never see him. Besides his intro press conference, you hardly see him. And people are loving his work ethic. There was someone mentioned this one guy who was very in the know, said that this is the first time, the closest it's felt to an old Joe Paterno style football team, just building a good blue collar culture and just being just a tough football team, blue collar culture, accountability, and they're just putting their nose to the grindstone and just grinding away. So that's good. I do, as far as an X's and O's coach, as far as a game day coach, preparation, I do think Matt Campbell and his staff will do a very good job. I just think, and I said it weeks ago, a month ago, I just think there's going to be a bit of a learning curve recruiting at this level. I mean, unfortunately, with NIL, he has a little bit of Franklin in him where he wants to be cheap, I think. Now, Spell had nothing to do with being cheap. They gave Spell everything he wanted. I was told by a couple sources, one guy who was very legitimate, that they exactly what Spell and his family wanted, they gave him. So they weren't cheap with Spell. That was not an NIL situation. I could tell you that. All the I don't know the exact offers, but they gave him what he wanted, and all the offers, NIL offers, were close. But, I have read things about Campbell where he's not used to having this type of money. And, in his intro press conference, he said something along the lines of money is going to be a component, but it's not going to be the number one thing. And that always gives me a little red flag. Like, listen, everybody likes to use the two words, fit and culture. Fit and culture. That's great. I understand fit is important. And I understand building a good culture is important. And you want guys that are going to work hard. You want the blue collar guys that are going to be there. but you still got to go acquire the best talent you can. I mean, today's college football is about talent acquisition. You go out and you get the best available talent you can. And I'm not going to get into the whole spiel again, but one of my biggest pet peeves with college football fans, and they're all like this, is they all assume if there's like that Anthony Sweeney's a top edge rusher, he could absolutely command a lot of NIL. There's always this assumption that if a kid wants NIL and he's going for big NIL, that somehow he's not a blue collar kid. He's not going to work out. He's not going to give his all, or he's going to be a bad teammate, not be a good fit. And that's total bullshit. Have there been some that didn't work out were like that? Yeah. But the majority of them are still balling out because, listen, NIL deals are usually just 1 year. So you sign a kid to an incoming freshman to a 1 year NIL deal, you best believe that kid's going to want another big NIL deal. Some are multiple years, but most are one. Because you bring a kid in that doesn't work out, well, that protects you and that protects the school to not have to continue to pay him. Then the kid could go portal. But my point being is just because a kid wants a big NIL deal doesn't mean he's a bad kid, doesn't mean he's a bad fit. But I just think there's going to be a learning curve a little bit with Campbell as far as just you got to go out and spend. You got to target every single top. You should be targeting every top guy in your recruiting region, and you got to go hard after him. I mean, that's what big boy recruiting is. And when he just targets select few guys at each position, okay, wide receiver, here's the 3-4 guys we like. Running back, here's the top 3 guys we like. You have to, when those guys don't pan out, I think he goes back to Iowa State mode instead of going after an Isaiah Rodgers per se. He then goes to Iowa State mode of where do I find this under the radar guy that I could coach up? So they go after a 5'8" running little 3-star at Cincinnati that committed to Cincinnati. You see where I'm going with this? So, just want to touch base with that, let people know what happened with the Kemon Spell situation. I don't think the Kemon Spell situation is completely over. Time will tell. And I just hope Campbell adjusts a little more, bringing in more top guys, offering more top guys, and, isn't afraid to spend NIL like every other top program. That's all. That's pretty much what I want to say.
A lot of great information there, Chris, and I think that you make a lot of good points about the coaching staff and things that they need to do and, work on and stuff like that. So great stuff here from Chris. Appreciate you coming on here, and everybody, Penn State fans, anybody else listening to this. We'll see how Penn State continues to evolve and get better, but that's your Penn State recruiting update with a lot of good names to know and a lot of good guys to be on the lookout for. So thanks, Chris. Thanks, everybody, for watching. We appreciate it. Have a good one.
Yes, sir. Have a good night, everybody.